What is going on, my Cardano friends? We are here with a very prominent member of the community and builder in the community, Jarek, today, and we're going to be talking about AXO. Jarek, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me.
Okay, so we're going to jump right into it. We're going to jump into the first big question. What is AXO, and what is AXO's mission? Why are you here?
A fantastic question. So usually I'm asked just what is AXO, and AXO is a trading protocol. I think we'll get a bit more into depth into that later. What's the difference between trading and DEX and everything else? But let me just tell you what our mission is, and that's to make trading fair, frictionless. I know it sounds pompous, but I don't know if people realize it yet, but we are not just building a trading protocol on Cardano. We are looking into revolutionizing, how the exchange is done. And a big part of that is doing that in a decentralized manner, but we approach it from the first principles. And that's part of that. So we need ambitious mission if you want to reach far.
Yeah, and I think most DEXs, or I guess most DeFi protocols in general in the space, don't take the approach that you guys take, though. You guys have been building for how long now?
So in the conceptual phase, AXO has been there for over 4 years, but the actual development on Cardano has been going for almost a year.
And what inspired you to build AXO?
Two things. So first, seeing a problem that everybody has, like when it comes to trading, and actually trading is the most natural way for us to create the wealth that we work on so hard to obtain, through our life. But the second one, actually observing how the game is played from the within of traditional finance, and especially, I mean, how the existing system operates and in how huge disadvantage puts people outside of the system. And my dream was basically, to create a system that I wish I personally had when I was at the time.
And then that birthed AXO. When you sparked the idea, did you have anyone around you to work on it, or did you just kind of grab people as you went?
Uh, so beginning was quite lonely. Actually, I couldn't figure out even who to build it with, and some people in the community suggested me to write the white paper. And I don't know if I even mentioned to anyone before, but white paper was written in a week. And it was possible to be written in a week because I already had all this idea in my head. It was just literally me smashing the keyboard and then a few people helping me to review the writing style and English. So it took probably, I think, another week after to to improve the writing style. And this led to very interesting outcomes because as soon as people see that white paper, there are a lot of interesting people reach out. For example, one of them is Mark Dump. And, for example, like we both come from a very deep traditional finance background. So I've went very deep, high frequency trading algorithmic route, and I have degree in quantitative research on top of the degree in informatics. But Mark, on the other hand, he's a university dropout and he started his hedge fund at the years of 20, which is crazy.
Oh my god.
It's not easy to start hedge fund. You have to be qualified, you have to get appropriate certification, etc. And we kick off from there, and you build it one step at a time. Like sometimes you look, like at the current stage, and you think, oh wow, like those guys figure it out. Well, usually it's not as easy because you solve a lot of problems along the way, and hopefully you get to the right outcomes.
I mean, I think in terms of Cardano, the white paper you guys have put out, even though you wrote it like a week, you said is one of the most extensive ones we have, or that I've seen. 86 pages, I think it is, right?
Well, if you want to count all the fluff,
Uh-huh.
like the cover, etc., it was 88 pages, but
Okay.
after we rebranded, so it's an extra cover, etc., it is 92 now.
Oh, up the pages. I like that. Next question. You kind of answered this already, so kind of twisted a bit, but your experience in the world of finance and crypto, how do you think those two things come together, or when did they come together?
Very interesting point. And I don't know how closely you are following Queer Bloom. I bet you follow it very closely. But what blinked for me was the lace.io, like the input-output wallet, and you go there and you read the description they've put on the website. And I don't think they mentioned the word crypto anywhere. Instead they call it digital assets. And I think that's the point where it
Mm-hmm.
intersects. And even though while we see it inside the community, we don't necessarily feel this way. Crypto kind of become a derogatory term because of of all the hacks,
Mm-hmm.
of all the exploits, of all this bad influence. Like this big beat X something crypto channels with 5 million followers showing a coin after a coin.
Yeah.
Uh, but on the other hand, the actual technology, like was always a step into interesting direction. Like Bitcoin offer us an alternative away from a centralized counterparty risk. So now, like people in Cyprus, like who actually got their wealth confiscated in Cyprus, it's part of the European Union, right? They had actually money confiscated from the bank accounts. They don't have to carry the risk. They have an actually viable alternative. Though the things still like Bitcoin, like they were hijacked by all those crazy people, like just promoting it for the price action.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of similar things happen to, in general, like crypto space. However, uh, I like to describe it like technology is like a container. We decide what we do with this container, what we put in that. So it can be a very dystopian or very negative thing, or it can be a beautiful improvement. And that's also what happened in dot-com bubble. The internet was really a great revolution. We see it especially from today's point of view. But there was a point where, like dog.com, which actually was nothing, just the website, was selling at $100 million valuation, which was insane. And I think crypto went from something similar, like this crazy, irrational, uncontained boom. And hopefully we are now coming out of that into like the actual world. And I what found interesting, especially from people within my traditional finance circle, a lot of them actually now living and accompanying new really serious and established companies that deal directly with digital assets.
Mm-hmm.
And when you think of that, everything that exists on the planet can be digitized. And when it's digitized, it can be traded much easily. And now there is an entire emerging market where ownership and transfer funds can become much less complicated. And I think that's where we are going. And that's the crazy thing because when you think of it from this perspective, a lot of the projects that exist already in crypto, they kind of don't fit into that narrative. So is what's going to happen? Are they going to adapt to solve some real world problems, or they're just going to stay contained? But it's going to be interesting. It's definitely converging, and in my opinion, we have two alternatives, right? We have this scary centralized digital bank currencies where they take money away from our accounts,
Mm-hmm.
like for breathing too much, right?
Yeah.
Or heat or anything like that. And the other one where actually we have a lot of freedom and, uh, we as sovereigns, right, have the right to decide about the assets we own, and we have even more control, which would be, like a very beautiful thing.
On the point where you mentioned the .com, I think that resonates a lot with a lot of people, that like right now we're in the early stages, and especially with the boom we had earlier this year or at the end of last year, everything was so euphoric and it comes down. And I know a lot of people now, they think it's all over, this is worthless, but I feel like that's probably how people felt back when the web was just becoming a thing. I mean, I wasn't there, I was still like 4 years old, but I can imagine it's kind of the same idea. um, Now back.
It's
Sorry, go ahead.
if you don't mind, I actually want to touch on this point. It's
Okay.
really interesting point to touch in general because that's a human lizard brain, right? We want
Mm-hmm.
confirmation of our actions, right? So when we buy something, we want it immediately to go up in price, right? And when we sell something, we want it immediately to go down in price. So
Mm-hmm.
this often leads to observing something going up in price and buying it at the top, right? Oh, like, okay, it has to continue going up, like it's been going up for the last year. And the same on the way down. And, like people joke, that, well, everybody buys high and sells low. But this is actually a psychological phenomenon. And when you get into the professional trading, that's one of the first cognitive biases you learn to deal with. And especially, like there's like a lot of other pressure. Like imagine you actually have a good prediction, but then the market doesn't care about your opinion, it goes completely different direction, right? How do you maintain this conviction that you were right and like remain patient for a year or so?
I mean, even for me, it's hard, right? Even for me, I make videos on it and talk about it, and just like that's how I work through it. But I know a lot of people, if they're just in their head about it, it eats you up almost, especially if you're not knowledgeable of what's even going on. Like if you're not aware of what you're saying right now, it's very tough to actually figure it out in the moment. And I still have no idea how to manage it really, but I hopefully will learn over the next few attempts or a few run ups or whatever else happens in crypto. But now I want to move over to AXO again and talk about, or you tell me what makes AXO different from other DEXs or financial platforms that are currently on Cardano.
Very good question. So let me start comparing it to DEXs. So
Okay.
usually when we say DEX, we mean automated market maker. And automated market maker is the same or similar as the Uniswap used. So we usually mean X times Y equals const, or potentially the same formula, but no over concentrated intervals. And this is only one trading strategy or market making strategy. And you could say, like the limit or there is another one market or there is another one. And AXO are all trading strategies that you can think of. So that is a limit
Mm-hmm.
order, market order. Market making strategies, like can be AMM, but can be actually something much more sophisticated that the big companies in traditional finance would use. That actually makes a lot of more sense because unfortunately, like automated market maker is one of the worst way to make the market. It amplifies the inefficiency and the risk that you hold as a market maker practically to the extremum. And that's also why a lot of those DEXs often have to drop such a high yield rewards, because if they don't drop 100% yield rewards a year,
Mm-hmm.
then you are practically guaranteed to lose the money, which is kind of crazy, right? Like
Yeah.
if you have to print money in that quantity to incentivize there to be a liquidity, like in traditional finance, people make the markets because it makes them money and nobody incentivizes them to do this. It's so opportunity, like to buy at the cent lower and send a cent
Mm-hmm.
higher. Like you make literally pennies, but you make them so often. Like one penny, like 500 million times a day. Well, that's 5 million, right? So that's
Yeah.
your revenue by doing the market correctly. And that's what AXO opens before everyone, the tools to build that, and not only tools, because we work very hard to making those tools very approachable to everyone. So uh, you don't have to work with some complicated strategy composer. It literally looks like a limit in the market order, and now suddenly you can add stop loss, take profit, bracket, which is both stop loss and take profit, or you can like the DCA, or you can DCA into index, or you can deploy other things. And also, nice thing about this approach is you start with one thing that you're comfortable with, but over the time you onboard the new knowledge. So I
Mm-hmm.
think it's like also a good way to embark on the path of not only trading the things, but also experimenting how to do them differently and incorporating like new knowledge and experience into how we do it.
I really like everything you guys are building, and if like I went to the website and I saw, as someone who's not really a trader, how you guys explain it. A lot of it makes sense for me, and And honestly, I've learned a lot just from reading your website. So I'm excited to use those features. But another question is, all you mentioned Uniswap. Is there any reason you guys didn't build on Ethereum? Why are you on Cardano?
Excellent question. We all know Cardano is special, but we
Mm-hmm.
have all the different reasons for that. So when you asked before how long have we been working on AXO, I said, like conceptually it was over 4 years. So this idea actually sparked in my head when I was working for Starseed. It was a long time ago. Uh, but I didn't had an idea what I would build that on. And in Haskell Love Conference 2019, I talked to Phil when he was talking about the formal verification. And then I've learned about Cardano. And, just talking how special it is, like it was so incredible that so then you have this really established researchers doing the research on this protocol, but also doing the formal verification of it. So I started reading and I found Cardano has this very unique special feature. It's called off-chain computation. So we all know, for instance, like you said, like Ethereum, computation is extremely expensive. It's so expensive that everything you have on Ethereum is basic as it gets. And they spend a lot of time to build solidity libraries that make it even simpler. Now, well, if you want to build complex things for the complex world in which we live, well, then that's probably very limiting. So what off-chain computation allows you to do is you perform this very complex computation completely off the chain on this classical computer that's very cheap to use. And then what you generate is a proof that you submit on chain that proves that what you want to do to the specific UTXO is legal. Not only that, like then we also touch the second point, UTXOs. Well, on Ethereum, because you have the account model, you have to know exactly what's the full state beforehand. So everything has to be sequential. On Cardano, you can split it to be basically parallel between each other. So off-chain computation and UTXO design are incredible things for two reasons. Off-chain computation makes complex solutions like AXO possible. And by the way, when I say complex, I mean protocol is complex, but it's simple to use. So,
Mm-hmm.
it's like building a car. Car is very complex, but also very simple to drive. And then on uh, another hand, because you have this UTXOs, that's a perfect model for distributed computing. And distributed computing allows you to do a lot of things, building optimal transactions. So you don't require so much memory to be provided to each transaction for it to be performed. Now, like we talk same about capital efficiency, but
Mm-hmm.
we pay for the memory access on the blockchain. So if we can only access the memory which we need, that's also capital efficient. The transaction is going to be cheaper. And those both features of Cardano really enable interesting ideas to thrive. And then, of course, the third one, and this one we all know very well, Cardano is deeply embedded into the research. So that's also something that has very long vision for the future. And that's exciting, like to be on something that's not the final point. We
Mm-hmm.
aren't done. It's actually something that's going to continue growing.
And you mentioned capital efficiency. Is there any chance you could maybe go a bit more in depth on what that means and why it's important for a user?
Sure. So imagine you can take from one side of the Manhattan to the other a cab. Uh, 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 you know, you can walk there or you can fly by helicopter, right? They all have different time of travel. So, probably helicopter is going to be the fastest. But then it also may not be the most capital efficient, right? Because that's probably going to cost quite a bit. And now think of this like you're planning the travel for an entire city. So
Mm-hmm.
you want to maximize the people's happiness, but also you want to minimize the cost. So capital efficiency focuses with minimizing the cost, while people focus on maximizing the comfort, right? And when you look at traditional solutions, so traditional solutions like the traditional solutions in crypto, like for instance Uniswap, then you have like every trading pair is different. right? We may not realize it because like in crypto, like it's almost never explained. But the best example is, like any token pair on the blockchain, just, like some project token, for example, like the layer one token, they are both, you assume they either are going to appreciate in the price or they're going to fall in price. And then you have stable coins, which are usually quite the opposite to the crypto, but between each other, they should have the same value, right? So now you shouldn't technically have the same model for exchanging Ethereum for Uniswap, and the same model for exchanging USDC for USDT. And when you look at the Uniswap, you will notice two things. The first one is if you want to exchange USDT for USDC, 99.5% of all the total value logged in that pool is never used. It only sits there because the formula is so inefficient. So technically speaking, like once they introduce the concentrated liquidity, and now everybody decides, okay, but I'm going to skip everything of the outside of 0.99 and 101 ratio, and just focus only on that small interval. Well, then now almost all money is used, but before it was completely sitting on the sidelines. So it's quite crazy when you allocate the New York City public transport budget and you spend only 0.5% of that, and 99.5 just sits in the warehouse and collects dust. And that's exactly the state of capital efficiency on the classical AMM. And by the way, it's not like concentrated liquidity solves that, because concentrated liquidity just takes this bad model that existed like in this from 0 to infinity space and compresses it to the interval you defined. Well, now if the prices move out of that interval, this capital just left behind, right? So it's not used. You have to redeploy it. This is expensive itself. So now, let's say, every day you wake up, the walking path, is completely different position, right? Like the roads change every day, so like you have to wake up and check the map every morning. That's kind of the situation, and also because it changes so much, like now you risk, like being run by the car because the drivers are learning that too. So that's a very hectic situation. The market also makes the capital very inefficient. While like if you focus on more traditional models, that is something that's studied extremely well. I think like almost all of the books you see behind me are actually about this topic, quantitative finance and market making. So the fact that this amount of knowledge exists, and it's just like the books I have behind me, right? There is so much more in the world, right? Including like the research papers and such. And instead of that, we are using this, banal way of, making markets. That's quite insane. Like on one side, it was revolutionary because, hey, the first time the centralized way of making the market, but also we should never stop there because this is like an amazing proof of concept. Now we have market making on the chain, so it's proven it's possible, but we have to move past that. And especially with the Cardano off-chain computation, we can do that, and that's actually what we are exactly doing with AXO.
Yeah, and I don't think all the other dexes or financial products right now, they don't really, they've been kind of just reworking the wheel, and they haven't really been, I don't know, going forward as much as AXO. I mean, that's what I get out of it. Not that they're not useful, but like, I don't want to go and put my money in the liquidity pool, really, because I know it's not gonna do well. It's very risky. The yield, you have to watch it. Like you said, you have to check it every day. You have to manage it. And having the tools that Axo is bringing is what I'm looking forward to, and especially so, we kind of touched on this earlier, but programmable swaps. I know you kind of mentioned the tools you offer, but what is a programmable swap in relation to Axo, and maybe some uses of it, again, if you don't mind sharing.
Fantastic question. So, Programmable Swap is your private portfolio manager, whom you have instrumented exactly what you want them to do. So, like you have this portfolio manager, you come to them and say, hey, I want you to take this asset, and this asset. And now you describe them exactly what you want them to do. And it may be as simple, like every day for the next 30 days, I want you to buy token X for a portion of the data I deposited. Very simple like that. But then you can actually say, no, hey, that's not the only thing I want to do. Like I actually want to protect my downside. So whenever the price of the tokens I bought is going to fall 20% below the price at which I bought it, I want actually to sell it. So that's your stop loss. And then you may also say, hey, actually I'm very bullish on that, so I don't want to immediately sell it. But as soon as this 2x and it starts falling down in price, so for example, like using some divergence indicator for that, then I want to sell it. Then you have this portfolio manager sitting on your behalf on chain and doing exactly what you ask them to do. And I know it's very abstract definition, so let me specify it a bit. What really happens is you write a programmable swap. So we have this X programming language, and you can either use like a simple interface on the website, you can use a strategic composer and build something bespoke. And then when you create that, it's being compiled first into the Pluto script. If this Pluto script already has been created, for example, like DCA, then just going to use the same script with the parameters you specified for UTXO. And then this UTXO is locked on the chain with the access only by you, so either like using pub key hash or with the NFT that represents the size. So for example, like if you mint index, then having NFT actually allows you to trade that
Okay,
index.
that's
And
awesome.
thank you. And then it exists on the chain, so it's not like a bot that sits outside of the system and monitors the system and changes something. It's actually code living on chain, and now you have this network of order matching engines that monitor all the changes in the blockchain, and whenever they see a potential match, they match it. But also, not only that, at the same time, they certify that this is the fair transaction. And the fair transaction means the best offer and the best and the first information that was revealed. So like if 100 people offer to exchange something at that best price, then the first one who offered that should be matched. And this is like set and forget, and also it guarantees you that if somebody has a faster computer or has more luck, they won't be first. The definition of fair is like you always get the best offer, and within that best offer is basically the first person who said that they're offering that.
It seems like a lot of people are going to have a wake up call when programmable swaps come, and they can customize so much about their decentralized orders, not just like because people might be used to this on Binance or Coinbase, things like the tools that they offer, but having this on a decentralized level for finance, I don't think is really something I've seen personally, and I'm excited. I think it's gonna blow a lot of people away. But one thing I want to ask is right now the users for AXO are based on Cardano, obviously. So it's built on Cardano. But do you guys have any plans or any thoughts of ways you could branch out the tool to people who maybe are familiar with Cardano and offer them basically what you guys are offering people who are active on Cardano now?
I just want to touch on the previous thing you said. I just want to
Okay.
say that centralized exchanges don't have that either. And not only the crypto centralized exchanges don't have it, the traditional exchanges don't have it either, because
Mm-hmm.
if you go to really bespoke brokers, because like usually like you never have access to the exchanges like the DLF broker, right? And the bespoke
Yeah.
brokers, like the interactive brokers. I encourage everybody to go check there. You have probably like 50 order types, which are also not in the exchange. They're manually executed by interactive brokers on your behalf. There's no guarantee there is T+3
Mm-hmm.
settlement, and you have nowhere near that many options. So I think we are not only going, hopefully, to shock crypto people, we are also going to shock the traditional finance people, because for them it's also the tools that they would really like to have. Now you asked the excellent question, right? Are we going to stop on the Cardano? And Cardano is Cardano, right? So that's not the entire word. Despite how much things we can bring to Cardano, so there's always value in connecting things. So we absolutely looking forward to build bridgeless bridges. So that's something we actually have been looking into. So you don't have a bridge with something that creates a lot of risk. And there is a lot of amazing things you can do with the, well, you could say recent development in cryptography. And I think there's like a new wave coming in the research that still is quite young. And that's the right time to start building those things. And you can have secure solutions, uh, cryptographically secure solutions that allow you to trade cross-chain. And when you trade cross-chain, it can be technically cross any system.
That that's gonna. I mean, touching on what you said earlier first, shocking the traditional finance world too. I didn't even like I knew you guys were building stuff that hasn't been built before, but I didn't realize that or didn't really think of how much different and more customizable something like AXO is compared to anything out there outside of crypto, right? But also kind of on that bridgeless bridges or different implementations, are you guys ever planning to use like layer 2 solutions or also integrate decentralized identities onto your platform?
So I don't want to talk too much about layers 2, etc. So if you mean by layer 2 of the existing solutions, not likely, because
Mm-hmm.
we, I know it's going to sound full of ourselves, blah, 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 but we think we can do better what anybody is even building at the moment. So it's not that we don't like it. Like there's a lot of solutions on both Ethereum and Cardano that building layer 2s that are going to be extremely valuable to the ecosystem. We just don't think it's the right solution for us. We can think we can
Mm-hmm.
do more bespoke and better in that manner. But you touch on the idea. Actually, on the idea, I can tell you a lot because we have a public partnership with IMX.
Mm-hmm.
IMX is doing incredible things in the terms of the digital identities. And I expect us to be very heavily integrating with them in the terms of KYC, so know your customer, and a lot of other things. Because if you ever want to bring institutionals to Cardano or even like somewhere else with bridgeless bridges or something, then having identity built in is going to enable the trading between the people already in the ecosystem and the institutions, because institutions have specific regulations that they have to follow. So as long as they can follow these regulations and there is a value for them to be in this ecosystem, they're going to be here. And they are immense volume. There are many, many times the volume of the entire crypto. Just the
Mm-hmm.
derivatives market is 600 trillion. Imagine bringing, like a percent of that to the blockchain. That's literally 6 times the crypto market cap in one day.
Yeah, that would be pretty crazy. I mean, right now I don't even think the crypto market cap's at $1 trillion anymore. So, 600 million. Yeah, that's quite a bit.
Okay.
um, Next question. How do you guys, or how do you directly think AXO can benefit not only the world of decentralized finance following its launch, but just people in general? I know we kind of touched on a lot of the topics, but if you want to go over that again, what do you think the main points of benefit are for people and using AXO?
So for me, those are two levels. Layer 0, philosophical one, and
Mm-hmm.
layer 2, the tools we are getting to use. So on the philosophical level, I believe that we should always get more freedom and more ability to understand why we're doing certain things and how the things work. And having a tool that enables us to do things better and also along the way to learn why we're doing this specific way just makes everybody in the world just that small friction more free and more knowledgeable about what they're doing. And I think that's beautiful. And that underpins what AXO is, because AXO, at the end of the day, is a tool. But this tool enables everyone on the planet to trade according to the same rules with full potential of those tools. And, I think that's quite amazing. And also across the way, when you're doing and learning that, you educate yourself, right? So you do that, like you do limit order, you do market order, then I add stop loss, I take profit, I actually DCA into that. And that's something that in the process of using, you became a better user of that. So like I think like a lot of Harley Davidson cycle, like the users, they like they buy a motorcycle and they end up with completely different one 10 years because they replaced every part, right? Despite it looking very similar
Yeah.
still. And this is to some extent definition of freedom because you can replace those parts and you understand what they're doing. And if the motorcycle supports your learning process, then you become in the process a better biker, right? So
Mm-hmm.
that's a very positive process. But now this is not wind in our hair. This is the fundamental component of life. Like trading is essential to everything we do. And I know it may sound silly, right? But we are even trading when you go to the store, right? We're exchanging fiat for example, groceries.
Mm-hmm.
But this I know sounds abstract, but now we have to realize all the companies in the world do that constantly because like the manufacturer may need to buy gasoline, they may need to buy wood, they may need to buy some futures for like the fuel they put in the airplanes, etc. And this fuels the entire market. So making this market much more available to everyone, much more transparent and fair. I think it brings to a lot of value regardless if you are in Cardano or you are trading, like commodities or anything else. So as the protocol grows and hopefully we onboard into traditional world, like bringing also like equities, commodities, and everything else into the trading, like the value of what AXO can do spreads.
And kind of going back to what you said earlier about, people learning how to learning about what they're using. Do you think there's any gaps to fill when people are hopefully going to use AXO and they'll realize that, hey, decentralization is really cool and they'll learn about all these things. Do you think that's a big selling point, or not a selling point, but a really important point for people to learn about who come into the space that most people don't care, right? Most people don't care about decentralization, but having that on AXO kind of be a part of it, right? And just what it's built upon. I think that's really awesome, and I don't know. I want to hear your thoughts on it too, maybe.
You touched on a very important point, which I also agree with you. People often forget, and that's one of the silly things because they should always remember that and always ask for it. So, how do we know something is fair, right? I
Mm-hmm.
can trust somebody that it was fair, but this is a lot of trust that we have to give someone, right? Or I can, for instance, know that 3,000 validators checked this code and they all came to the conclusion that it was exactly fair, nobody cheated in the process. And that's the value of decentralization. It creates the trust that's extremely hard to break because I don't think any of us can even get remotely close to bribing 1,500 stake pool operators.
Mm-hmm.
And also, they would be crazy to be allowed to be bribed because they would basically be losing the value of the entire underlying network. So, in that sense, the blockchain is really a beautiful idea because you have aligned actors in maintaining the healthy ecosystem, and they are guaranteeing that whatever happens in this ecosystem is according to the rules that somebody published. So, if somebody is going to publish a smart contract, then you don't have to trust that this code has been run. You actually know that this code has been run because you deposited some assets into that smart contract. And now 51% of the network has to agree that that's what happened for this to move forward.
Yeah, and most people don't know that, or I guess most people who are coming to AXO now kind of understand that, but I think in the future when you guys are dealing with institutions and just those bridges where people come and they just benefit from it, they won't know at first, but they're gonna learn, and that's why like kind of your philosophical approach side of things, I agree with that a lot. But
But I also will tell you institutions that actually I think they will know first
Mm-hmm.
because from the discussions we had, the people may be surprised actually that there is quite a bit of interest in the blockchain technologies, not specifically maybe in crypto, but the blockchain technologies. And specifically, the focus is on transparency. And I know it sounds crazy, like the institutions want to be transparent. That's not what I expected, right? But there's like a lot of things that they do that they would benefit greatly from increasing the transparency. However, the blockchain is again like the extreme. Like we have to be transparent about everything, and
Mm-hmm.
that has its own disadvantages because, let's say you want to buy a billion worth of the Microsoft stock, you better don't tell anyone because then a lot of people are going to front run you and buy it before you because then so much buy volume is coming that
Mm-hmm.
it's just logical to front load on that. So you want to be transparent, but not immediately, and you want only to be transparent with specific things. So it's like this gradual privacy, right? Also, I think it's like one of the risks we have with crypto because I don't think I don't know. Maybe you would want that, but I don't expect that. Like, I wouldn't want my Amazon shopping history to be
Yeah.
available to everyone. But if I would connect my Cardano wallet there today, that probably would be, and that's a bit scary. One probably some gradual privacy, so maybe then
Mm-hmm.
somebody can see how much money I spend on Amazon, but not on what, and what transactions, something like that. And the traditional institutions are actually quite surprisingly interested in that. So I think a lot of them actually would understand the centralization from the first day, and they are often much better actors than the people claim them to be. So they may be inefficient, right?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, or they may be old in like some old process, etc. But they usually like well willing and operating like within the right frameworks. So if they can create the value, and I know it sounds crazy, but like technically what every company in the planet is a money making machine. So if they can generate the value for the shareholders by doing X, well, then they probably willing to do X. That's how they thrive and survive.
All right, and we're coming to the end. I just wanted to ask you if you have any final thoughts or anything you want to share with people interested in what you're building at AXO.
I would really recommend everyone to head to the website axo.trade and check it out. We already put quite a lot of information, as Jackie mentioned, that is an interesting steps into what to expect and actually to see that is very approachable. And that's a good way to segue into a slightly higher echelon of the finance, like taking care of your personal wealth health. And also, I wanted to reflect a bit, like about my time in Cardano. I think it's been really exciting transition from traditional finance because to some extent, when you look like what's going on in Cardano, kind of like building a better future for ourselves. And I think it's beautiful because this is like a group of people, all of them sitting in their own mom's basements, right? I can be sitting in my mom's basement for all you know as well, right? And we are all building a better world, and I think it's beautiful. So I've really been enjoying my time in Cardano, and yeah, and also I feel like really blessed that the people like you exist in this space because this space makes so much more enjoyable.
Thank you so much, Eric, for coming on, and hopefully we'll have you back soon.
My pleasure. I'll be happy to be back. Thanks, Jack.